Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride.
Hey, Mr. Andy. Hey, I need to get your address.
Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
You were the winner of our trivia contest last week, and I need to get your address there. Should send you out a book. Hey, good morning, mi amigos. Good morning, Craig. Andy, thank you. Good morning, mi amigos. I am so glad that you're able to join us this morning for our special Christmas program. The holiday is always centered on love and sharing and family. And well, this morning I'm going to be sharing a bit of the history about Christmas celebrations in America. And unfortunately, there won't be enough time to really go deep into all the history. But what I have got for you will, I'm surely, be fascinating. And we'll be talking about the evolution of Christmas card and other Christmas traditions, holiday traditions. I'm quite confident of providing some surprises, a few smiles, and a bit of spice for conversations around the office coffee pot. And speaking of spice around the coffee pot, this morning, instead of coffee with Jim, it's Vossel. Vossel with Jim. Is anybody familiar with Vossel? If not, I'll put up a link later on the recipe and on this delicious apple spice warm drink on a hot day, on a cold day. Really great. Good morning, Brian and Marla. Let's see. And of course, we have our weekly trivia contest, our coffee cup sponsor of the week, which you may have guessed is the iconic Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari, New Mexico. And we've got a few other things to share. Let's see if I can keep this to a half hour. Feel free to chime in with questions, and I'll answer them before we close out the program. Okay, before getting things on the road, I want to give a shout out to the boys of the road crew for our theme song. If you need something to inspire dreams of a great American road trip, check out roadcrew66.com. Okay, we'll start with our trivia contest. Andy was last week's winner, and we've already discussed the address. Here's this week's trivia contest. Since this isn't quite Christmassy, but since we're talking dark deeds on Route 66, this is the grand prize this week. Whoever comes up with the first right answer wins a copy of my latest book, Murder and Mayhem on the Main Street of America, Tales from Bloody 66, defaced with my signature. So we got a little dark story there for you. Here's our trivia contest. On January 2nd, 1932, 6 officers from the Greene County Sheriff's Department and the Springfield Police Department followed Route 66 out to the farm of a family that was operating an interstate stolen vehicle ring from central Illinois to Amarillo along the Route 66 corridor. It was supposed to be a relatively simple arrest, and it turned into an absolute disaster. Until the tragedy of September 11, 2001 in Washington, D.C. and New York City, this incident set the record for the largest number of law enforcement officers killed in a single event. What was the name given to this horrible, horrible event? Okay, next up, let's get to Christmas. With the exception of our Native American neighbors, we're a nation of immigrants. So it shouldn't come as much of a surprise to learn that the American celebration of Christmas is a very, very rich blending of traditions. But just as with regional accents and dialects, since the dawning of the television age, the sharp diversity has faded a bit. But there are still pockets where the holiday observations have a distinct Dutch, German, French, or even Nordic feel. As an example, here in the Southwest, especially among the Pueblo tribes, Christmas celebrations are often a blending of the Catholic influence introduced by the Padres and Spanish conquistadors and Native American traditions, many of which centered on the winter solstice. Here's an interesting little side note for you, a little bit of trivia. Several Native American tribes have a tradition about a friendly figure that surprises children with treats and gifts around the winter solstice. The Creek Indians call him a name that loosely translates as the handsome fellow. In some of the Plains tribes, it was a tradition for chiefs to be given gifts throughout the year. Then at celebrations during the winter, the chiefs would share their bounty with tribal members. I mentioned the ethnic, diversity here, with our Christmas traditions in America. Maizetown, Illinois, any time of the year, if you get a chance to visit this incredible little village, it's just a few miles south of East St. Louis. It was founded by German immigrants in the 1850s, and it is a living time capsule from that period. But it retained such a strong German influence well into the 20th century that even town business was conducted in German well into the late teens. World War I put a damper on anything German. But the residents there today, they embrace that heritage every year of Christmas, and some of their Christmas celebrations, they blur the lines. It's hard to believe that you're actually in America. You feel like you are in Germany, especially if there's a great dusting of snow. The Iron Range of northern Minnesota and the upper peninsula of Michigan, that was, and of course the Dakotas, they were settled largely by immigrants from the Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland. In many, many small towns up there, families still celebrate the holidays with traditions brought from the homeland. And in the early 17th century, there was a strong Dutch influence in Christmas celebrations in New York. And that figures into something a little bit later, but let's see if we can get to that. Let's look at Christmas in the 19th century. Santa Claus, as we envision him today, didn't exist until the 1870s, when Thomas Nast's drawing of a fat, jolly elf all dressed in red with a flowing white beard was first published in Harper's Weekly. The popularity of the Nast's drawing inspired countless imitators that used the image in cards and product promotion. Abraham Lincoln, he would be familiar with a few of our Christmas traditions. The story, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," that was written by Clement Moore in 1822, and that became a very popular reading for children on Christmas Eve by the 1860s. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, published in America in 1843, has been retold countless times in various forms in movies and television programs, especially during the last 75 years. Hey, do you have a favorite version of that program? Just curious. One of the best I've seen was, I can't remember the fellow's name, but he played Captain Picard on the Star Trek series, and he did an excellent rendition of playing Ebenezer Scrooge. Do you have a version that you like? Anyway, this was also a very popular reading in 19th century America. And Christmas carols, that's always a big part of our Christmas celebrations. And popular carols during Lincoln's time included "It Came Upon a Midnight Clear," that was written in 1850, and "We Three Kings of Orient Are," written in 1857. Okay, a little bit of trivia for you. Would you care to guess when the modern concept of a decorated Christmas tree in the house came into being? And if you're thinking the North countries and Germany, yeah, they had traditions featuring kind of a Christmas tree, but decorating an indoor tree with tinsels, lights, and baubles. Well, that first was represented in a popular print in a women's magazine, Godey's Lady Book, and it appeared in 1850. And the image was of Queen Victoria's tree at Windsor Castle. The Queen was extremely popular at the time, and so the Christmas tree became all the rage, the latest fad. And public displays of decorated Christmas trees became real popular Christmas attractions in towns and villages all over the United States. And we have no evidence that Abraham Lincoln ever had a Christmas tree in his home. But the family did visit the Christmas tree exhibited at the First Presbyterian Church, located a few blocks away from his home there in Springfield, Illinois. The claims of a war on Christmas and that a Christmas greeting was being banned has become a really popular and powerful political myth in the 21st century. But did you know that Christmas celebrations were once banned in the United States? It was the pious Puritans. They sailed from England in 1630 and founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony. And they brought with them a contempt for Christmas to the New World. They kept their shops and schools open and churches closed on Christmas. It was a holiday that they disparaged as Fool's Tide. In 1659, they took things a step further when the General Court of the Massachusetts Bay Colony made it a criminal offense to publicly celebrate the holiday and declared, quote, "Whosoever shall be found observing any such day as Christmas or the like, either by forbearing of labor, feasting, or other way, is subject to a 5-shilling fine." Their reasoning was based on a very, very strict interpretation of the Bible. Their goal was establishment of society and a legal system that would not violate anything the Bible said. And the fact that the early Christian church had linked the birth of Christ with a pagan celebration, that further fueled their disdain for the holiday. The noted Puritan minister, Increase Mather, wrote that Christmas occurred on December 25th, not because Christ was born in that month, but because the heathens' Saturnalia was at that time kept in Rome, and they were willing to have those pagan holidays metaphoriced into Christian ones. And to make things even worse, the Puritans felt that papist, a term for Catholics, had capitalized on the celebration of Christ's birth. Surprisingly, in Massachusetts, the views on Christmas were so well entrenched for decades, and when newly appointed Royal Governor Sir Edmund Andros attended Christmas Day religious services at Boston's Townhouse in 1686, he prayed and sang hymns while being flanked by redcoat soldiers. They were guarding against violent protest. It was not until 1856 that Christmas, along with the 4th of July, was made a public holiday in Massachusetts. Food. Oh man, we all look forward to traditions of food. I know I do. That's how you get in this kind of shape. In the mid-19th century, a Christmas feast became an integral part of the celebration. It became a big thing during colonial America, but it really picked up steam in the 19th century. A primary change has been in what we serve for what we think of as a traditional Christmas dinner. A typical menu for a holiday dinner, for example, this comes from the White House, 1865. Boned turkey, oysters, venison, chicken, chicken salad, biscuits, bouillon, glazed fruit, fruit cake, ice cream, cakes, candies, a macaroon pyramid, citrus fruit, preserves, followed by wine, brandy, whiskey, eggnog, and hot coffee. Wow, quite a get together there. Starting around 1800, as populations began to really soar and immigration became a tsunami in America, the wealthy in American cities, especially in New York, were very concerned, increasingly concerned. I mean, actually worried about traditional December rituals where the poor could demand food and drink from the wealthy and celebrate in the streets. These rituals occurred any time between St. Nicholas Day, which was a Catholic feast observed in Spain and other European countries, on December 6th, and New Year's Day. And for centuries, these celebrations were overlooked because the kings, the royalty, saw it as a means of relieving the discontent of peasants. Well, in the congested confines of the American urban environment where extreme poverty prevailed, there was a concern that these celebrations might fuel protest, riots, and violence when employers refused to give workers time off during the holiday or when a long winter of unemployment loomed for seasonal laborers. And to get a picture of this, think about Charles Dickens' story, A Christmas Carol, and Ebenezer Scrooge and his relationship with Bob Cratchit. Well, in New York City, a group of the city's wealthiest men organized a group that they called the Knickerbockers. They invented a series of traditions for this time of year that gradually moved Christmas celebrations out of the city streets and into homes. They presented these traditions as a reinvigoration of Dutch customs that had been practiced in New Amsterdam and New York during the colonial period. And there was a grain of truth, a small grain of truth, but it was largely a fabrication. Drawing from two story collections by Washington Irving, their most well-known member, these New Yorkers experimented with domestic festivities on St. Nicholas Day and New Year's Day until another member of the group, Clement Clark Monty, solidified the tradition of celebrating on Christmas with his enormously popular poem, A Visit from St. Nicholas. This is better known as The Night Before Christmas, published in 1822. Critics of the commercialization of Christmas today, we kind of tend to attribute the growth of holiday gift giving to corporate marketing efforts. Yeah, there again, that's true. Celebrations have certainly been corporate driven, at least since the mid 19th century. But gift giving was a part of the American Christmas celebration, at least since the late 18th century. What do you think the most popular gifts were during Abraham Lincoln's time? Well, popular Christmas gifts for boys included wooden toys, books, popcorn balls, candy, firecrackers made with gunpowder, toy cannons that actually used gunpowder, guns, rifles were a big hit, and horns or noisemakers. Girls usually received a doll, books, soaps, and notepaper, for those who could afford these things. Adults often gave each other books, notepaper, pens, perfumes, soaps. Here's an interesting little side note for you. I learned this when I was back in Springfield, Illinois at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museums and Libraries. The store register of John Williams and Company in Springfield, Illinois, has preserved an entry from December 24th, 1860. Abraham Lincoln bought as gifts 4 linen handkerchiefs, 3 gentlemen's silk handkerchiefs, and 4 children's silk handkerchiefs. The Christmas or holiday celebrations during Lincoln's time often culminated with what they called Receiving Day on New Year's Day. What it was kind of an open house that people hosted and attended and visited their neighbors. One of the things I found interesting about this was a presentation of calling cards when visiting someone's home. The calling cards were often placed on a silver dish or in a calling card basket. And the size of the card differed depending on the sex of the caller. A man's card was, a woman's card was half the size of a man's card. And cards with their upper right-hand corner folded over were sent to inform the receiver of a visit. And cards with the upper left-hand corner folded over were sent to inform the receiver of necessary congratulations. And I think that should take us up to Christmas cards. The first so-called Christmas card was given to King James I of England in 1611. This was like a large ornamental manuscript rather than a card as we think of them today. It was 84 centimeters by 60 centimeters, 33 by 24. You know, something pretty big, pretty good size. And it was folded into panels. It had a picture of a rose in the middle, and a Christmas and New Year's message to the king and his son was written in and around the rose. And then there were 4 poems and a song on the other panels. The modern custom of sending Christmas cards has its origins in England in 1843. Sir Henry Cole was assistant keeper, a senior civil servant who had helped set up the new Republic Record Office, now called the Post Office. In 1840, he established the first modern postal system with penny post public postal deliveries. I had something I want to share with you, but it's pretty fragile. Let me see if I can find it. I should have grabbed this sooner. I was kind of worried about how this would work, but let me get to this here. Our postcards. Let's get to talk about Christmas cards, and I want to share something with you, a little show and tell. This gentleman, he established, Sir Henry Cole established the first modern postal system with penny post public postal deliveries. Cole and his friend John Horsley, an artist, devised the idea for a Christmas congratulations card. The card had 3 panels. The outer 2 panels showed people caring for the poor. And the center panel was a family having a large Christmas dinner. He got in a little bit of trouble with that because he showed children drinking wine. By 1860, the Christmas card had become so popular in America, it was the #1 item shipped by mail. But the post office and the rise of the post office gave rise to something else, the periodical, the magazines. And many of these, especially, they put out special Christmas editions. Now, I'd mentioned Godey's Ladies Book previously. That had pictures of Queen Victoria's tree. This is an original Godey's Lady Book from 1870, and it's a special holiday. I have one here. This is from August. I have one that is the holiday celebration, but unfortunately it is in very poor condition. But with the advent of the mail, we could send out these, and this gave rise also to Christmas catalogs. Later in the 19th century, Montgomery Ward, Sears and Roebuck. In 1875, Louis Prang, he was a printer from Germany, and he had worked on Christmas cards in printing in the UK and in Germany. And he brought his tradition, his artwork, and mass producing of cards to the United States. And of course, this cut the cost rather dramatically. His Christmas card featured the nativity scene as well as snow scenes, flowers, and children. In 1915, John C. Hall and two of his brothers created Hallmark cards to produce holiday cards. We're running close on time here, but I've got a little bit more I want to share with you. Please understand, it's not my intent to disparage the American Christmas celebration, but I'm a fanatic about presenting history as it was, not like we would like it to be. So to present a clear picture of the Christmas holiday, I also need to look and want to show you a bit about early African American celebrations before Emancipation. Harriet Jones, a woman born into slavery in 1844, she wrote about extensively about in her memoirs, a great book if you can find a copy, and she wrote about Christmas celebrations. And she noted the men would gather around barrels of cider or whiskey, celebrating their day off. The women would prepare a turkey dinner, and after dinner, the men and women would find their partners and dance to cheerful tunes. She recalled that her master helped lead the Christmas dances, calling to his slaves to swing their partners. Jones relished the opportunity to dance intimately and openly with her significant other. During the dances, men wore clean shirts and women placed ribbons in their hair. Central to the preparation was the act of removing, literally and symbolically, the confining field shoes. Christmas was the only day slaves were free to celebrate as families. And you know, this half hour has gone by fast, and I hope you enjoyed it. Before I wear out my welcome, I want to give a shout out to the coffee cup, our coffee mug sponsor of the week, the iconic Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari, New Mexico. Dating 1939, this living time capsule is a true treasure. Route 66 motels are extremely rare. And I don't think a Route 66 adventure can be considered complete until you experience a neon lit night at the Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari. If you'd like your museum, business, or community featured on as a coffee cup sponsor, simply send us a mug. It's a free promotional opportunity made possible in part through the magic of crowdfunding on our Patreon-based website. Here's to the Blue Swallow Motel and Vossel. But if you want to add a check or cash to that mug, you know, I surely won't complain. My parting thought for the day is this. We call it Christmas. We have, whether we believe it or not, there is Christ in Christmas. That's in the name. So let's celebrate this Christmas season by emulating the love of Christ for our neighbors, regardless of their political affiliation or ethnic background. The COVID pandemic and the resultant economic hardships have made this a somber and trying time for many families this year. So let's move beyond things that have been dividing us, and let's strive to be a blessing unto others. And then, if we want a real challenge, let's see if we can make this a way of life that we live every day in the year to come. Folks, I guess that wraps it up for this week. I need to say thank you to Connie Eccles for her careful stewardship of the gym that is the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri, and for her sponsorship of this program. Let's see what we got for questions this morning and greetings. And good morning, Miss Lulu. Cold and gray in Indiana. Yeah, it's been a little chilly here in Arizona, but I don't know how long a person can put up with this. I mean, every day, sunshine and warm, day after day. My God, it just doesn't stop. Makes it hard to find something to complain about. Good morning, Mr. Brian. Keith, good morning. Always good to hear from you. Thank you, Andy. Andy Sampson says that there was a Christmas tradition in Kingman, Arizona for years. The Elks Christmas tree made from sagebrush. I got it, Andy. There's the address. I must have overlooked it. Thank you. Karen, good morning. How are you doing today? Patrick Stewart, yes. I like his rendition of Ebenezer Scrooge. Very, very good. Thank you very much. Marla, I'll send you a message. Well, Nolan, Mickey's Christmas Carol, I'm familiar with, but I gotta be honest. Beavis and Butthead, not so much. Karen, you are correct. Can you PM me with your address? And I will get you a copy of my new book, Murder and Mayhem on the Main Street of America. And I'll sign it. And if you want it personalized, just let me know, Karen, what message you would like in the book. And we'll get that out to you. Lulu, thank you. Ian, no, it was the Younger Brothers Massacre. Uh, it was. I'll put up some details on it. Mike, thank you. Merry Christmas to you too, Brian. Guys, thank you for joining us this morning. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you had fun with this. And next week, what we're going to do is I want to thank you, of course, for joining us this morning. I hope everyone has a wonderful Christmas holiday. And even if it's just enjoying family and friends via Zoom, be careful out there, be safe. And I hope we can get together next Sunday morning for another episode of Coffee with Jim. Invite your friends. Next week, we are going to be talking about a Route 66 adventure in Illinois. I'll be sharing some of my favorite places for pie and good food, some overlooked attractions and destinations, and some little side trips and detours. I think you're going to enjoy that. Might inspire a road trip or two. Good morning, Clemens. I'm not sure. Clemens on a 55-inch TV, you know what? I'm not sure if that's a good idea or not. Bill Murray's Scrooged. That was a pretty interesting rendition. Yeah, Christmas trees. Isn't that amazing? I've got some of those here too. They were little clip-on. Some of them were quite ornate, and they held like what would be small, like birthday candles. But can you imagine that? Putting candles on a dry Christmas tree. What can possibly go wrong? Folks, thank you so very much. And I sincerely hope that you have a great Christmas and holiday season, and that you can share it with family and friends, even if it's through the magic of Zoom or Facebook Live. Uh, for everybody out there that's suffering through some hard times financially, our thoughts are with you. We do hope for a better 2021. And for anyone who's been experiencing loss or problems through the resultant of COVID, it's going to be a somber and challenging year for a lot of folks, but hang in there. My friends, thank you. Take care. Vaya con Dios, mi amigos.